right, it's time for Fast Five. Let's go to our first topic. Transgender debate hits Washington County. Ron, what say you?
That's a very difficult thing, but I think it's dog whistle politics. It's something that one side gets her teeth into and makes an issue out of something and brings up hypothetical situations that I'm not sure exist. I'm a little bit more concerned about what Denny Hastert did in a locker room as a wrestling coach
Yep.
and went to prison today for. I'm a little more concerned about things like that happen in real life and not hypothetical things.
I think this entire debate, honestly, is an artificially created debate to get one part of the base excited.
And it works.
And I agree with you. I think it's a whole lot ado about nothing.
Larry, have you run into somebody of the opposite gender in your men's restroom?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I have some friends who are currently in Europe, and co-ed bathrooms are the norm
Yes.
in Europe.
Japan as well.
All right, topic number 2. A Waynesboro pharmacy employee shoots a would-be robber. Guy's in critical but stable condition, I understand.
You know what I
at the
say?
hospital.
More power to them. That's exactly what they should have done.
Good guy with a gun actually took out a bad guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Ron?
And I think, nobody can make an argument that you shouldn't defend yourself in a situation like
Ron,
that.
what do you say?
I had an old friend by the name of Denny Gigas, one-stop shop liquor sales out by the Antietam Creek going towards Waynesboro. Some guy come in one day and decided to give him some lip, and he shot him. You know, that's the way it works. You want to play with fire, you're going to get burnt.
If that's the case I'm thinking of, that gentleman never had a chance to try to rob anybody else.
Nope. Gigas did a number on him. He used to call in the Trav Rupert talk show all the time, and Gigas did. And he was from that Stop and Shop liquor store out there. Good guy.
I mean, again, I think, if you're walking into a store and you're about to rob it, your rights pretty much stop at that point. And the guy was not, certainly he had the gun on him with a proprietor's knowledge, and he was allowed to. It's legal to open carry in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure whether he had a concealed carry or not. I don't think there's absolutely anything wrong with that case.
All right. The Supreme Court refused to hear a challenge on Connecticut's assault weapons ban, essentially leaving those debates and those rules back to the states. Larry, what do you think?
As well, they probably should. Part of the problem, I find, is overreach by the federal government in cases that probably should be decided on a state level.
Now, the only thing I would contribute to that, and not to be contrary here, but I think we miss something in this entire gun safety debate, which is that the Second Amendment is not there to protect the right to go hunting. It's not there for any other reason than to act as a final check for the population of the country to be able to stand up against a corrupt or an overreaching government. So, if flintlock was military hardware in 1776, a breech-loading percussion cap rifle would have been military hardware during the Civil War. And then we came up to repeating rifles, Henry rifles, and then Winchesters and what have you. So this notion that the Constitution doesn't protect, and I'm not saying that everybody should have, ICBMs or anything in their basement, but
But you want one.
I think we have gun legislation in this country is being driven by people who have no idea about guns. They will outlaw a gun because it looks scary. And meanwhile, you may have a civilian version that functions exactly the same. It may be a semi-automatic. It takes a detachable box magazine. And just because it doesn't look scary, that's going to be legal, and the other one is not. You can buy, in the state of Maryland, you cannot buy an AR-15, which is the civilian version of the military rifle, of the M4 assault rifle. But you can buy an AR-10, which is the same rifle chambered in a .308 or 7.62 by 5.1, the standard NATO round for heavier machine guns. That does a lot more damage than a 5.56.
Ron, what do you think?
What happened at Sandy Hook? I hope something like that never happens in this geographic area. But if it does, there's going to be some differences of opinion on how to deal with it. It's not been close to us. It hasn't affected any of us. Someday it may. And I think, and I've talked to some of my gun friends that, because I own weapons. I was an infantry officer in the military. I think the NRA could be part of the solution of how we could protect ourselves. We've got 353 million weapons in the country. How do we work with the NRA to get some reasonable way that we can protect us?
Well, and I think, part of it is, to take the other side of the argument, which this normally doesn't blend, I think good background checks are a good idea. Now, you have to have a background check system that actually works, as opposed to what you have with NCIS now, which is understaffed, overworked, and they result in a lot of delays because they
Why the
simply
debate
cannot-
then? If everybody thinks it's a good idea to have background checks, why do we go to a gun show and you don't have background checks?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You absolutely have background checks at a gun show. I read an article this week that there was a gentleman worked for a newspaper, went to a gun show because he thought that he'd be able to just waltz in, get a gun, waltz out. And he had a few dings on his record for spousal abuse and alcoholism. Guess what? Kicked out of the show without getting his gun. Background check absolutely worked the way it should have.
Now, with what he said and what was on the news today, it was totally polar opposite of what Larry just said. That's the mixed up messages that we get because of the controversy.
Well, and the real problem, I think, ultimately, is you have both sides that are putting out a lot of erroneous information. Now, in the state of Maryland, in order to get a handgun now, you have to apply for a handgun qualification license. This includes a full fingerprint background check done by the Maryland State Police. It took about 5 weeks for me to get my card in the mail. I had to show that I had taken a safety course, aside from being a veteran in the first place. And it worked great. I got my card in the mail, no problems. Went on my happy way. I don't mind if the government keeps record that I qualified, that I went through the background check process. That doesn't bother me because I have absolutely nothing to hide.
All right, good debate, guys. Let's move on to our next topic. Latte Justice. A U.S. district judge in San Francisco said California plaintiffs can seek damages from Starbucks for, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Underfilled coffee cups.
Well,
Come on.
well, there are two things you just said there. San Francisco judge, we'll leave it at that. And a latte is supposed to have a nice foamy head. So why would you be worried if there's more or less liquid, as long as it's got a nice frothy head to it?
Well, I guess, if you're getting a half a cup of coffee, right, then you complain to the manager and you get your full cup of coffee. This is a perfect example of how litigious we have become. It is a complete waste of a court's time to adjudicate that Starbucks should be responsible for filling a cup properly. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Well, it all started with the coffee from McDonald's that burned somebody because he spilled hot coffee.
Well, and if you're such a moron that you don't understand the fact that coffee is made by brewing, steaming water, then, I don't think a warning on the cup is going to prevent that person from running off a bridge or running with scissors or anything else.
If this was a mom and pop coffee house, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The fact of the matter is, Starbucks has deep pockets. Starbucks is popular.
Yep.
You can go after Starbucks for money.
This is a way we
somebody's trying
can
to make it.
penalize them. All
And,
right,
and just to follow up,
Sure.
most of the times if I go after a cup of coffee and I'm driving, I'll say, don't fill it the whole way to the top. Only fill it 3/4 because you squeeze the cup and go to drink it and it flies out all over you.
Or if I'm in a fast food drive-through and they give me 3/4 of a cup of soda, I'm going to say, hey, can you fill that up for me, please? Last topic. We're about out of time. Governor Hogan names Chris Shank as Chief Legislative Officer. Chris has been serving as the Chief of Staff and now has a new title. So obviously Chris has won the...
He is there to represent Western Maryland.
Yeah. Good stuff in my view. I think having him in those key positions is good for our community.
I guess that I see Chris utilizing his talents as he goes forward to running for something far higher in someday than what state senate position was. I see him utilizing this to go much higher
And
at
it
some
could
point.
very
in
well
time.
be, but it's good experience, and I can't help but think he's doing good things for Western Maryland. All right, that's all the time we have. Stay tuned. Last call is next. We'll be back in 3.